All right, back here on Inside Wrestling Radio, and we got Jim Mitchell on the phone today. Jim's an old friend of mine, and he's telling us a little bit about his history in the business and some of the things that he did leading up to getting to TNA and all this stuff in between. And Jim, before the break there, you were talking about your time in ECW and how much fun you had.
Other than the initial few years before I got a break,
yeah,
ECW was the most pure fun I had in the business.
Right.
It was like every day I couldn't wait to get up for work. I lived my gimmick, you know. It was just a fun place to be, man. It was a lot of fun, and and then of course as you move on, then you start dealing with the politics and the pain and the nonsense that comes with big time wrestling. But it was a good time.
Yeah, and let's go back to the because I did want to cover some quick stuff from WCW time. You were, of course, managing the Blood Runs Cold gimmick up there,
right.
And that's where actually you got put with Canyon, who we actually knew before he got the WCW gig. And tell the people some of the behind the scenes stuff about Canyon, because you knew him before he actually got his Mortis gimmick and his WCW gig.
No, Canyon was a cool guy. I met him through a friend of mine that was tape trading. He hated my friend, but he liked me, and he wanted to get into the business. I was basically a ne'er-do-well, as they say.
Yes.
I had a string of horrible jobs so that I could quit them at a moment's notice and go do indie shows. Canyon, basically, I got him booked on shows, and he let me crash on his couch.
Right.
Then it turned out, 2-3 years later or whatever, he revealed to me that he was gay, which I had no idea of. I was totally clueless of for the longest time. Although girls all the time would say, I think your friend's gay,
Right.
But part of my shoot manager job was to cover for him.
Yeah.
And procure rats or whatever, or make up lies about something he had supposedly done the night before. But he was a great guy, a real good guy, and it's a shame that mental illness screwed him up. But he's was a real dear friend of mine and a missing component from the wrestling business. He had a lot to offer.
Do you think that that there was always the possibility, because I remember you and I talked in private a couple of times, and you would say things like that something just didn't seem right, and then maybe he had made some threats earlier that he was just not going to be here anymore and stuff like that. Do you think it was always an underlying theme that may at one point occur?
Yeah, but it's I don't want to be all morbid here on your show.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's real difficult when you deal with somebody that's a dear friend that you love who's got bipolar.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, and then one day, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He said a lot of times he was going to off himself, and everybody'd get upset. Oh, you'd spend a weekend. Oh my God, where's he going to? Are you going to answer the phone? Where is he? After he'd made threat, and then he popped back up.
Right.
And after a while, you kind of took it in stride.
Yeah.
And then, but the last time I saw him in January in Long Island, I managed him one last time for a Mikey Whipwreck show. He was, I loved the guy, but he was out of his mind.
Yeah.
And I knew it was over.
Oh, really?
I told people when I got done with that gig and came back to Florida, I told close friends of mine, I don't think he's going to be around long.
Wow. So you kind of read the writing on the wall, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then you went to TNA, and how was your time in TNA? Was that fun also, kind of like
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I can honestly say nobody in TNA ever said a bad word to me. Nobody ever disrespected me, at least not to my face that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
There were always things in TNA where I would kind of roll my eyes and think, because they had and still have all of the parts. They have all the ingredients to go to the next level. They really do. A lot of good stuff going on. But there were, when I was there, I would see things that were just sort of counterproductive. And, they've got a core audience, and they've consistently pretty much maintained that core audience.
Yeah.
But, the thing that was frustrating to me was that there would be times when you would see something that I couldn't understand why certain things were being done, because I thought they were contrary to what you needed to move forward. But that wasn't my position.
Yeah.
They didn't hire me as a consultant or a booker, so it was never my place to complain about them. And again, even now, I'm not going to say anything bad about them, because it'd be like, if you're married to a woman for 40 years,
right,
and then when you're done, then you say she was a horrible woman for 40 years, well, then who's stupid?
You're right,
you
yeah.
or her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I signed on to be a part of it, and I took part in it, and I have to shoulder equal responsibility for whatever I did. But what I will say is that I was never, wrestling had changed so much from the time you and I started.
Right.
And looking back at it now, you go, wow, it's not even the same beast at all.
Yeah, it's completely different
so,
deal, yeah.
It's all the scripted promos and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And people have to rehearse their matches, and, nobody calls it in the ring. But one of the things that I give them credit for that made my stay there enjoyable was they would either at first they just gave me bullet points, to do my promos. And then when they got into the scripted thing, I would look at this, 4 pages of stuff, and I would go, excuse me, guys, let me reduce this down to 3 bullet points.
Yeah.
Cage match at the Omni Tuesday night, and I'm going to get my revenge. Is that what we're saying here? So I can just, is there any specific line you want me to say? And
sure.
If there would be a line or two they wanted me to say, and then I'd freestyle from there and do my own thing, which is why I think I always stood out from the pack.
Yeah.
Because I was not delivering someone else's lines. And this is not just in TNA, this is in WWE or anywhere else that people do scripted stuff. It's one person's voice channeled through other folks, and you can hear it if you really sit back and listen. And that's not my groove. I mean, I'm a big Dusty Rhodes fan, and I could improv a great Dusty Rhodes for you right now, and I could write what I think is a great Dusty Rhodes promo.
Yeah.
But if I handed it to him and he went to do it verbatim, it wouldn't be Dusty Rhodes.
Right.
You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So they were good enough to let me do my thing. Basically they'd say, okay, just take it and Mitchell it up, which is what I did.
Right.
And that's why I think I stood out from the pack, with a handful of other exceptions who did the same thing I did, by taking the material and making it my own instead of just reading, memorizing and relaying the lines that were on the page.
Sure. And do you think that's probably why I think Cornette was one of the guys who made the comment that you were one of the best pure talkers in the business? And when somebody like Cornette says that, it's really a something to listen to. And do you think maybe that's where that came from?
Yeah, I would think. Even when I didn't know it took me years. Look, from the day I started, I had moments of brilliance. I just didn't know how or why I did it. So it was a crapshoot.
Right.
You'd throw something against the wall and something would stick.
Yeah.
Once I learned how to steer my ship, it was like the clouds parted and the big light came down from the sky and the hand of God, then the choir of angels went, wah! Once I went, oh, wait, this is how this works.
Right.
And I learned there is a science to doing a promo.
Sure.
For anybody, just anybody who's in the wrestling business, the basics of how to tell a story before you even put your icing on it have to be there. And once I learned that, then I was on autopilot, and it was a great time.
Yeah.
And I guess that's it. And I think that's what applies to any of the good talkers. I don't think there are many new upcoming guys. There's a handful that you could say, hey, they're great promos, because most of them are kind of interchangeable chess pieces.
Right, exactly.
Whereas in the old days, when you had a dynamic force of nature like a Dusty Rhodes or a Ric Flair, or even more recently the Steve Austins and the Rocks, see, the sheer force of their personality and what they uniquely put into it is what gets them over, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think in this day and age any of the big companies want somebody to have that kind of power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's much better to say, no, let's just rein you in, and we'll put these words in your mouth, and we can adjust the volume of how well you get over or not by the words we put in your mouth.
And plus that'll keep you from pulling another rock and being the biggest star the company's ever seen, and then just being gone one day.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how I see it.
Jimmy, let me hold you up right there. Well, we are all the way out of time, bro.
Hey, we need to talk these old school stories now.
We're going to have you back on, Jim.
You're holding out on me now.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have
much more fun.
We're definitely
going to me to death, making me talk about myself. I want to talk about some of your shenanigans.
We'll definitely have you back on in the future, Jimmy. We are all the way out of time. I really appreciate you coming on. We'll talk more in the future. Fans, stay tuned. More Inside Wrestling Radio coming up next.